All right, welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, a show about good friends hanging out, talking about the things we all love. I cannot memorize that for the life of me. I have no idea
You
why.
really needed just the script.
Here's the problem: if I open up a window and I leave it open for me to read, for some reason Streamlabs blanks the screen.
No, just put it on and post it, and
I
like
know.
tape it to your monitor.
There's always a
Giant cue
solution.
card.
I know. Let me keep going here. My co-host is Andrew Sides, and today our guests are going to be if you're looking at my screen, so it'll be Khurrum. I can't remember how to say your last name, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Maqbool.
Maqbool.
But
That's
I go by Khurrum. Yep.
Khurrum, like Prince, has a first name basis only, and then Jason Smith. Today's episode, we're going to talk about Gen Con because both these artists were at Gen Con with me.
Yeah.
Khurrum, was it?
I was actually very curious to hear about this because, like, Alan and Jason have talked about it on a previous show of ours, but they both have been doing it for a while.
Jason Engel.
You guys, yeah, sorry, Jason Engel.
Jason
Sorry,
Engel,
who did I say?
You said
did I say someone
Jason,
else?
but there's two Jasons here.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, because we had Jason Smith here. Yeah,
There you
no,
go.
sorry, Jason Engel and Alan, they've talked about it previously, but they both are old hats at it. So this was both your first time at Gen Con, right?
It was.
Mhm.
Khurrum, it was your
And
first time too?
You were both in the
Yeah,
art
okay.
show?
Yeah, they were both in the art
Both
show.
in the art-
Okay.
Yeah, we were neighbors, basically.
Oh, okay. So how did you like the I have not gone to Gen Con yet. How'd you was this your first time going to Gen Con entirely in addition to being in the art show?
It was.
Okay. So like what were your first impressions of it?
It was. There was a lot going on, a lot to see. But I mean, I was mainly at my table, except in the mornings when I would walk around the aisles before it opened up to the public.
Mhm.
And-
It was huge. That was my first impression. Just like massive, the biggest convention I've been to.
Is this the first time you guys? I mean, you never even walked the floor just as an attendee, right? At this show, both you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
walk it as an
so-
attendee.
So, like for their first convention, Khurrum's done a LuxCon with me, so he kind of had a
Right, yeah.
feel for doing conventions, but for Jason's first convention, he
LuxCon's
chose Gen
totally
Con, which
different thing
is
compared to Gen Con.
crazy town. I didn't realize it was Khurrum's first time. For some reason, I thought it was your second or third time there.
I got in earlier.
Oh, I just
got
kept
in
having to
twice
roll
before,
it,
but I
yeah.
just couldn't go. Yeah,
That's right.
So
I remember last
the
year they had a
second
table
time-
for you.
Yeah. I got juried in by two different juries apparently, so that was some validation. So I'm like, okay,
That's
that's
cool.
cool.
At two different juries for Gen Con?
He
As far as
rolled
I-
last year.
Huh. Oh,
Because
interesting.
I got in
Okay.
2020, then they rolled me over. Then they're like, we're just gonna make everyone reapply. So then I reapplied.
Oh,
and then I got
gotcha.
in again. I'm like, phew, yeah.
Very cool.
I would have been like, I already got in. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Sorry, like I just noticed my camera is like pointing up at me, and I'm like really small, and it is as a result.
I don't have a good place for mine. Mine's always just there.
It's like so mine is like slightly off, and I have to like try and always move it over a bit. But then as a result, it kind of obfuscates everyone else. But I'm trying to get it so I at least kind of look like I'm looking at you guys.
This is the problem we always have, right? When normally we have a third guest, like you guys are both on the bottom of my screen, which is the screen all our viewers are looking at. So like I've had somebody tell me I look like I'm falling asleep when I'm talking because I'm looking down at you right now, Khurrum, and it looks like my eyes are not
Mhm.
looking at you,
Oh,
which I'm
Um,
totally not asleep, FYI.
well,
One thing I kind of remember Alan and a few other people have talked about with like Gen Con, like was it like really hot setting up?
Oh,
Why don't you guys tell us about your experience with that?
Yeah, what's your experience with
'Cause
that? 'Cause
I've
apparently
lived it
that is
already.
a common thing.
you want to
Yeah.
go first?
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I mean, starting off, we had to go to the marshalling yard, to unload our stuff into the convention center. And having never done this before, I didn't know what to expect. And I guess it's usually a lot shorter than it was this year because the wait
really?
this year for the marshalling yard was 3 hours.
Yeah, if you
And
got
when
in
I-
there late, if you didn't get it, like I usually go the day
Jesus
before because of that, and these guys got in there the next day. It was a long line.
Yeah,
Oh my
I had 2 hours, and then Jason came out for me, so he had 3 hours.
Why?
So
Why was it so long? Does
Because
anyone
if you get
know?
it, so like I got in on Tuesday, right? And on Tuesday, here's the thing: they let vendors who are sponsors start loading in on Monday. So the bigger
Okay.
names like Flat River Group and I don't know the big names
Somebody
for
like
some dumb
Fantasy
reason.
Flight or
Fantasy Flight,
whoever
all
would
these
have
bigger
their
names who have bigger booths. They sponsor, and then yeah. So they basically start setting up on Monday, and then they're there. Then they're in, right. They're there the whole time, and then on
Mhm.
Tuesday you have people like myself and some of the vendors showing up throughout the day, and my wait was 45 minutes, and there was nobody there with me. There was like 6 people in line with me, and they were like, "Just go wait in your van until we call you," because I think what's happening is they need space for you to pull into. I didn't need a dock. I just need to park and haul stuff in. But they don't know that, right? Until you're actually there and you're like, I just need to pull over here next to this wall. And then I think Khurrum and Jason got in on Wednesday, right? Which is
Yeah,
which is like the busiest load-in day. But
Oh
usually it's
gosh.
like an hour. Like Khurrum was messaging us saying he's still in line, and I was like, holy crap. So
yeah.
I feel like
It was.
something got screwed up.
Did you have to
Well,
wait
yeah,
in
I think they
line
were.
like with your car or what do
Yeah.
you mean like wait in line?
No,
Oh, like
so
with your vehicle. Okay.
yeah, so there's this part I wasn't clear about from all the documentation that I got. I was just told I'd go to the marshalling yard and then figure something out. So when I went there, there was a little like a portable
Yeah.
just kind of sitting there. You go stand in line. You had to get a form from someone. There wasn't really an indication of who that was. Someone just called me. Then I
It's the
just
guy
waited in
that's like
line.
riding around in the stupid cart, and you don't
Yeah,
know that, obviously.
yeah.
Mm.
So then it just took a while, and then they're like, "Yeah, go wait in the car." They give you a number, and then they'll call you a number. And I think they were just staggering everyone so that the loading docks would clear out. So that's
Right.
where the wait happened.
Well, what happens is when you're
But
on the floor, they have to like. There's a guy out there in the golf cart, and he's supposed to tell you where to park. He's supposed to keep track of. All right, Alan, this guy just pulled in at 1 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock ish, he should go back and check in on me. Because what ends up happening is people unload and they start setting up. When what they're supposed to do is unload and remove their vehicle, so people like Kerm and Jason could pull in, but they're on the floor, not being caught essentially. So then they're
I mean,
sitting in the
but the
marching yard
floor is
waiting
like
for us.
the floor, like the setup floor on Wednesday was just like chaos. So I can understand why it would be hard to find somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they're
when
supposed
I
to call
heard
your
that
phone, right?
yeah, yeah, when I heard that the wait was 2 hours, I decided to go back to my hotel, put all my stuff in a wagon I brought, since I didn't have a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
lug it to the convention center. So I was already sweating by the time I got to the convention
Yeah.
center.
Oh, so that was the next question I was going to follow up with. Like, if you weren't coming in by vehicle, did you have to go through the marshaling yard still, or were you able to? You
No,
you could have just walked
you
right
can
in.
haul it in. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
Okay,
can bring it in, I tell people if you can haul your stuff in through the main doors, do that. You just
gotcha.
if you're there if you're there on Tuesday, they'll let you just come on the floor. But if you're there Wednesday, I think you have to go get a loading. Did you guys have to get a loading badge?
no, I just got my regular artist
Oh
badge.
yeah, even that badge just gets you on the floor. If you
Yeah,
can haul stuff in, like in suitcases and stuff, do that. Because the marching yard is like that's why on the last day I never go to the marching yard when the show's over. I leave my van at the hotel, and by the time I'm done breaking down, there's a parking lot right at the back of the convention hall. You
Hmm.
can't park a truck there, but you can park a minivan there. So I break everything down, then I go back to the hotel to get my van, and then I bring it to that parking lot. It's usually like $10, but this year there's
Right.
nobody there, so I just pulled in, parked, and there is a stupid uphill battle, and they don't open the gates on the inside, so they make it really hard for you to take your stuff out. But you just have to like haul it from that hill, and
Right.
it's better than waiting
I
2 hours at the marching yard.
yeah. There were a couple other people like Drew. Forgot his last name for some reason. Drew
Baker,
was there.
yeah,
Baker, yes.
yeah.
So we all just kind of hung around, talked, and so it was a little party happening over there.
Sure.
But not,
That's nice.
yeah.
That's not. But the thing is,
still,
like, if you
two
did you use
hours.
the loading dock when you left, the marshalling yard when you left.
I did use the loading dock. Yeah.
No, did you use the marshalling yard?
I did use the marshalling
Okay.
area. Yeah.
So
So
wait, the second
not for
time.
loadout.
Oh,
Not the second time, just for loading in. Yeah.
so for loadout, the
So
marshalling yard is usually like hours. Like Brian Colin, who's been on the show for Bass Grim and all that, he was there. He finished the show closed at what 4. He got to the marshalling yard I think at like 6, and he didn't get his stuff for another like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
It's just
Wow.
like sitting there waiting in this giant line.
Yeah,
Huh.
I just took myself back to the hotel room.
I'm
when
sorry about that too,
loading.
man. I felt bad when
Oh
you
no, that's
messaged about the cart, and I was like, I was already like,
okay.
I loaded everything out, and I was already driving back to the hotel, and I was like, oh
It's like you have a
no.
cart. So I did. I think it was like 20,000 steps that I took for 4 hours. That I was loading stuff out back to my hotel room, one item at a time, because my cart that I did have was small. So definitely, you have a larger hand truck.
Yes.
That is very useful. So I exchanged I took my smaller one because I want to take my packing material. But next time, what I'm going to do is just to have more hand trucks accessible, I'll
Yeah.
bring my larger one. And load out becomes a lot easier.
I've
But
already been
going back
using all
to
the free supplies you gave me.
oh, cool, that's good. That's good. I might just mail all of that to the hotel instead of mailing the art. I'm going to mail my packaging material and just
Yeah.
carry my cart, my hand truck, and all those
You
sorts
don't
of things in
need you had like backing boards, and I was gonna tell you, you got like
my.
Khurrum got like pristine like backing boards. I was like,
Oh,
these are
really?
nice. Which don't do that. I just get chipboard. You get like a box of 400 chipboards, and if you're like driving to a show, it's fine to use chipboard. But I stopped putting boards in the back of my prints years ago, and I just bag them, and people are fine with that. You
They
can
were,
put a
yeah.
board there if you want to
The,
like
the only
fancy it
annoying
up.
thing without doing a bag is
Don't do it without a bag ever.
oh, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, no, sorry, without a board.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, got confused on my words. No, the only thing I've always found like whenever you try and bag a print without a board, is it is fucking hard to put that print into the bag. Like it wants to fight you every step of the way.
not if you're good at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
I may also just not have enough experience.
You need
Very much
practice.
that.
Come over to my house. You can bag
Yeah.
a bunch of prints for me.
Yeah, I think like if I were to ever do this convention, I probably would do what you did, Jason. Just walk in because especially because like if you're in the art show, you have the pro panels already set
Right.
up, right?
Yeah, that was
Correct.
Which
nice.
is yeah, I was gonna say like
That's the one
when
feature I
I've
missed this year, man. I was like, oh, I gotta set
yeah,
all these walls
you had
up.
to bring in your own stuff, right? Or like your own back, right, Alan?
Dude, half my setup, part of my first couple hours in that hall after I went and parked my van at the hotel was setting up those walls and then double checking to make sure they didn't fall over. Because
Oh my gosh.
I had it like the bracket set up so it's kind of like 3 panels and then one panel and one panel like in a corner, like a wedge, like an L shape. But you can wobble them and you could see everything moving, which is just how pro panels are. But
Right.
if you put, in my head, I was like, if somebody walks in, and Drew Baker was actually behind me, so he was in the quad next to me, and so him and I kind of like bumped our panels like close to each other. So I thought that was like reinforcing both of us a little bit. But
Mhm.
I was still worried. I'm like one strong push and they, not
Yeah.
really, but that's the way it's playing out in my head. And obviously they didn't fall, but
I man, I'm just thinking of like whenever I've done MegaCon or a LuxCon, I've always had the Flourish panel with me,
yeah.
which is oh god, even if you have that in a ski bag, it's a pain in the ass to travel with because it's
I've
just
traveled to
steel
LuxCon with
tubes
that.
and stuff. Yeah,
They
yeah,
tell they
you
say
know it. You
they say
hate
it's
it.
45 pounds. I was like, this does not feel like 45 pounds.
That is the most awkward 45 pounds
Yeah.
ever. Like, yeah, Christ. But yeah, no, the not having to worry about that, knowing that that's already set up at the convention, and
Yeah,
especially
that
its
was
pro
great.
panels, like, yeah, I can
Yeah.
easily fit everything I have on a hand cart, maybe even 2 hand carts, and just like push them along at the same time or something.
I
But
mean, what you
yeah,
do is you can also send if like so Kerm drove there. So if he has room for a big hand cart, bring it. Jason
right.
flew there, right?
I
So
drove.
you drove too?
Oh, you
Oh, okay.
drove? Okay.
Yeah.
If you're flying, I tell people just send like call your hotel, see if they'll hold it for you. Like so, example, Justin, my assistant, worked Otakon. I shipped all the playmats there. I shipped the metal there. I shipped the prints to him as well. And then I shipped him a pretty decent hand cart, which cost me like $40. And I told him, give it away at the end of the show or leave it. And he ended up giving it away. I said, give it to an artist who drove there who can take it. It's funny, he went to my friend Morris, who lives here in Chicago. He took it. But
Oh, that's great.
somebody got it, right? You didn't just dump it. And that's sometimes what you have to do. Like, you know, and I told him if the bags weigh, because he took all that stuff, whatever didn't sell, he took with him back home to bring to DragonCon
Right.
next week. And then, you know, I was like, well, if you don't have room for the prints, dump the prints, because they're the lowest cost item, but also paper is heavy. So,
Yeah.
but as it turns out,
Oh,
you know,
God,
he was able to
paper
get
is
it all in a
heavy.
bag and take it with him. So we're fine. But those are options,
So
right?
yeah. So like after
Customers should keep in mind. I was going to say is customers should keep in mind to check the trash for prints.
I mean, you
Yeah.
could it's absolutely go dumpster diving. You'd be amazed at what you'd find. Dude, there was a year
Yeah.
at Gen Con with I wish I had one to show you up here. There's a company called Snapships. They make these like spaceships that you can like snap together.
Oh yeah.
So the
Yeah, the
first
modular
year they were at
spaceship.
Gen Con was 2021, I believe, right after the pandemic. And they sold out so well. They had a bunch of extra products sitting there. Like they just were sitting on like they over ordered. Apparently it's not that expensive to make these things. But they had like 9 or 10 like boxes full of Snapships. So at the end of the show, they were just walking around giving them away to artists and vendors. Like, hey, you want some of these? I mean, I got like 5 of them, all different, for
Nice.
free. And I was just like, yeah, man, I'll take these. You know, thanks. And people
Yeah,
like
that's
Brian,
awesome.
you know, have been making spaceships out of them for his series.
How was so like after setup and everything? Like, how was the show itself for you two? Jason, have you done a LuxCon? I can't remember.
No, this was my first con
This
ever.
is very
First con
first
ever.
convention.
Okay,
Tabling at a
so
con at least, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so in that case, let's start with you. Like, how did you like it as your first con ever?
It was definitely a learning experience. I would say the whole thing was a bit of a roller coaster. I definitely went in with higher
That's a hell of a
expectations.
convention to start with as your first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely went in with higher expectations than I thought were than I think that were actually achievable. But it was, I mean, by the end of it, I was doing better than I did the first day. So
Okay.
yeah, the first day I sold
Yeah,
2
you had a
things
hard go
all
that
day.
first
So
day.
yeah, that first day was really depressing. Standing around for 8 hours and you only sell 2 things.
Yeah, yeah, I've been there. I think
We've all been there.
been there. Yeah.
We've all been there.
But and I also think like I was everything that I had priced, I basically just copied Alan's prices, and
That was your
Alan I
first
think is
mistake. Just
yeah,
kidding.
Alan has said this before to me is like you have to work your way to those prices. And so I think it was either I can't remember if it was the second or the third day I like hid my price sign and just started lowering the prices of everything, and then once I did that, then I started selling things.
Okay.
Well, I think it's
I
also a
mean,
matter of like
learning experience.
it's a learning experience. And I was telling Jason at the show was you're new to that show, so people like they need to like breathe you in and be like, oh, this is a new artist. And the art show itself is one of those parts of the shows where people come to find new artists. And Jason's work is very much like in the realm of D&D type fantasy stuff. So people want that. And, unfortunately your magic card didn't get revealed during the show. So that aspect of it didn't exist
That would have
for
been
you.
great.
Right. Unlike Khurrum's, his magic cards were revealed, so he had those on display too. But like in Jason's case, he's got this fantasy style, which is actually really good. But people need to be like, "Who is this new guy? Do I want to buy the stuff from him? What do I want to buy from him?"
Yeah. So
it's not even a matter of
man,
your cost, man. I don't think your cost was a problem.
yeah, you're just going in as essentially an unknown with even though
Right.
you had started working for Magic, it's just you couldn't even show that yet.
Yeah, it was hard. Like I would have all my stuff set up, and people would come up to it, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is cool, but I don't need a playmat right now." And then they'd go to the artist next to me, and because it was Magic playmats, they're like, "Oh, gotta have these Magic playmats." So
Ben Hill.
yeah, Ben sold so many of his Magic playmats. It's crazy.
He's got
He
he also
sold
keep
a
in mind
pretty
he's
good
got like some
amount
key
at
cards.
MegaCon too. I remember.
Doesn't he have like some? I don't know all his cards, but he's got some key cards if I remember. Like,
Oh,
Yeah, he's got
does he?
some pretty big
Yeah.
staple cards and like
Yeah.
Commander and stuff like that. So
Oh wow. Okay. Kerm, how is it for you? Like how many cards have you had revealed at this point? Because you've had a few, right? Or have you
Yeah, I
just
think
worked on several at this point, but you haven't had many revealed?
no,
I can't
I
remember.
think so. The last one, the latest one came out earlier this year, and then I took a break, and I'm gonna ask him. I'm gonna try to get more, but
Okay.
I think there are about 5 that are out that I had. So
Did you get people like
I think
recognizing the art, being like, "Oh my god, it's
yeah,
this art"?
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
cool.
it was definitely very helpful. So that was a big difference between me and Jason, and because tons of people were just showing up, getting all 5 cards signed. There were people who were looking for my name. They
Oh, cool.
yeah, because they have all these, like there's a group I think on Facebook called Fans of Gen Con, a
Hmm.
couple of other places where they've already made lists of people who will have cards there. So they already have this mapped out, and then they go to every single magic artist there is. So that's for
Oh
free,
wow.
just traffic that's going to you if if you have the games that they are looking for. So
Yeah.
that
What's
was a good
it's for
advantage.
Magic? Is that
Yeah, just people who
sorry.
just the. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I um, yeah, they were looking for magic artists to get their cards signed.
Gotcha.
So that was how they were finding me.
Tell me.
But at the same time, there is also um, experience counts as well because there is a certain amount of selling that you have to do. So you
Yep.
do have to kind of talk to the customers. You have to have a sense of who is looking to be spoken to, who is waiting for you to talk to, who just wants to browse. So you kind of have to get that sense.
Yep.
So I think that was helpful because I've done some of this sort of stuff at different conventions. So even if someone was not looking for a magic card, I was able to say, "Oh, welcome to my booth, and look at this
Yeah.
stuff."
So what
Another, what?
what conventions have you done? I thought have you done more than just the LuxCon and Gen Con? What other ones have you done?
Yeah, there's some local ones in the Northeast that I've done. Like there was something called RavenCon. There was
Okay.
LuxCon is the one that I've done the most. That's where I got started.
Sure.
So I've probably done, you know,
I guess were
7
those
or 8,
were those all much smaller than this one
much
then?
smaller. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've also done Balticon. Balticon was another one. So I was able to build on that experience. So
Yeah.
that did help. So this
Yeah.
one was luckily my best convention that I've ever done because of the amount
Awesome.
of traffic that was there.
Yeah. There's a
So
bananas amount of traffic in there.
yeah, so that was good. I also adjusted my booth every single day to experiment to see what exactly works, and I kind of figured out that because there's so much traffic, people aren't really looking at the walls or the pro panels themselves. They were, at least in my aisle, they were walking and they were looking down at the table as they were walking with the flow, and then if they saw something on the table displayed or something shiny or like a metal
Eyes would
print on the
snap
table,
up.
then they look up at the wall. So it wasn't very helpful to have too much stuff on the wall. So it was just different things that I was trying out because it was so I
You
was
know,
still
I
That's an
never thought
interesting
about that,
assessment.
but yeah, I kind of remember last time I was at MegaCon, I feel like I noticed that. Yeah, like people tend to scan the tables, even though tables are like fucking like obfuscated by everything, like
yeah.
people, other crap.
Yeah.
Well, who knows what?
Well, tables have the small item that they might want to, depending on the person who's looking for whatever.
Mhm.
At a show like Gen Con, people have money, but also people are looking for that small item before they look for that big item.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Khurrum had a bunch of cool little items on his table, like sculpts. Did you move any of those masks?
Just
Oh
one
yeah, the
right at
3D
the
printed
end.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened with the masks with those 3D prints? Is that people kept asking if they were from something. So they're like, "Oh, that's from blah 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 game," and they were interested in getting it. And then I'm like, "No, it's something original, something I made." And there was no brand or trademark. So they're like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna
I
buy
have
it."
found I had that happen a lot with one of my pieces called Undertow. It's the diver with the tentacles and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people like one of the very first things out of everyone's mouth is like, is that from BioShock? And yeah, like my first few responses were that kind of thing where I was like, no, it's this thing I had an idea of and stuff. Uh I remember after the first few times my wife like leaned over, she's like, no, you should lean into that even though it's not the thing. You should acknowledge it and like give them
Sure.
validation for it. And I was like, yeah, you've got a point. And like I sent like after that I was it was still kind of like, it wasn't me just outright saying like, oh yeah, this is totally BioShock, but it was kind of like saying like, oh no, it's not, but I see how that is, and I
Right.
played the game ages ago, so it's likely it bounced around in my head or something just something, some kind of breadcrumb to
Right.
give them.
I mean, I used to, people would always be like, "Oh, this looks like Destiny." I get that a lot.
Yeah,
I'm wearing a
yeah,
Destiny
you
shirt
mentioned
as I
that.
make this statement, and I would just, obviously I like the game, but I would also be like, maybe the creators of Destiny and myself have similar influences, right? And that's why some of the stuff stands out. But then now I've been getting video games like Hyper Light Drifter, Risk of
Oh,
Rain.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
So I've been writing them all down, and I have a convention notebook where I write down ideas. And like Khurrum was doing the crazy thing I would never do, which was changing my booth setup every day. But whatever I noticed, you see my booth, I'm not changing that thing.
Yeah.
But whatever thing, so I part of that is a list of things that people have said my work looks like, just to like, and most of the time, 9 out of 10, they mean it in a this is awesome because it reminds me of this awesome thing that I like. But early on, I was reading it like, fuck you. Like, what do you mean? This is my thing. But then, I had a good conversation with a couple friends who were like, take it as a compliment. Accept it as a compliment, and it becomes that, right? You could tell
Yeah.
from customers like the way they say it, right? If they're like, I've had trolls, and you could tell when they're being trolls. But most of these customers are just super nice. So it reminded me of this thing. That's why I walked over to look at it. I realized it's your own thing, which is awesome. Let's talk about it.
The troll thing reminds me. So I think someone in one of our chats or whatever, like some people were talking about like the crowd and all that kind of thing. How like generally was the demeanor of the crowd for both of you pretty good, or like were there a few bad apples
Yeah,
amongst it and everything, or did you just not run into that at all
a
while you were
few.
there this week?
I heard about that
Most
playmat guy.
Play
there
that
was a
guy. What
playmat
what what
guy.
was
There was
And
that?
I heard about the guy that got a sketch from you. I would have beat that guy.
Oh, that was the playmat guy. Yeah, that was the same playmat guy, the sketch dude. So generally, vast majority was great. There was no problem whatsoever. It was a very good environment. It was inclusive. It was respectful.
Yeah.
I didn't run into any issues, but of course the bad thumbs kind of stick out. So there was one or two issues that happened. There was one person kind of haggling for magic related sketches on playmats. So it happened with Ben first. So he asked how much I want a good sketch, how much do you charge for it? And we both kind of said $50 to $70 for, a quick sketch. And he got kind of mad and he's like, no, I got it for $10 or from the other artist over there.
$10.
And he $10, but the unfortunate part was we did confirm he kind of bullied the other artist into drawing it for $10 as well.
Right.
So
I'm gonna add that $10 onto mine then. $80
Yeah.
now, motherfucker.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the correct response. So it was a learning experience for me. So Ben said, no, go away. But when he showed up to me and he started doing like, blah, 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 this guy did it, this other magic artist did it, and he confirmed it with the other artist.
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
fine, I'll give you a $10 sketch. And I did give him a $10 sketch. So I was like, and I gave it to him. But
I would have
that
drawn
was
him
not
a dick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere.
And that
That was
playmat
one.
probably ended up on eBay.
Probably $600 or something. So things like that were happening, but again, vast majority, everyone was wonderful. It was a positive experience. Like sometimes
Good.
gaming environments get a bad
Right.
they have a bad reputation sometimes, but this one was they were proactively trying to keep it as inclusive, and it was pretty friendly. If something went wrong, you could go to Barbara, who is the showrunner for the art. I mean, the art organizer.
Yep.
So there was always someone you could reach out to if something bad happened. But overall, nothing beyond small things like that happened.
Gotcha. That's kind of like any convention, really. I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, occasionally we get like I got
don't-
one guy haggling for the Masters. He basically was like, "How low can you go?" I'm like, "What's your number?" He's like, "What's your number?" I'm like, "I'm never gonna tell you my
Mm-mm.
number first."
Yeah, it's like we're not doing that game. You tell me
Yeah,
your
and I
number, and
told
I can
my
tell you
assistant Leah was helping me. I told her the same thing. I'm like, never give them a number first because you don't know how low they're willing. Like, it's $1,000
Yeah.
piece. He might just be like $950. You know, he just might want a small discount.
Yeah.
And then I did have a
could
guy who
easily
was like,
overshoot
"Can
it
you?"
if you're not careful.
Yeah, I did have one guy who was super nice the whole time. Him and I got into talking and we were laughing it up. He was a really chill customer and he came by. He kept wanting to buy one and he was just like, he bought a piece from our friend Andrew Thompson. So he was just like, I spent money on him already and I really want this piece from you. And I said, well, they're available online if you ever want to get one. And at the end, he came by and was like, can I pay part of it down now and part of it later and then ship it to me? And usually I'm like, depends, In this case, I made him a deal. I didn't give him a discount, but I said, yeah, pay this much down. And then he actually paid the rest of it. Like I just invoiced him. He messaged me like a couple days back and said, hey, I got the money for the rest of it. So it's a lot quicker than I expect. I thought he was going to wait till like the holidays, maybe. He doesn't get the product obviously until he's paid, but
Right.
it's very rare that I'll do that. But he was nice and I did have and he also took constructive criticism well because I'm going to call him out if he's watching. He'll learn this lesson twice now. But at one point, he calls my assistant the help, and I was like, "Don't talk to her that way," because I'm like, that's super insulting to her. She's actually my friend who's working my booth.
Yeah.
She's not
I feel like
my help.
I feel like you get more of that with like larger conventions
Sure.
than smaller ones. Like AlluxCon, I don't remember ever running into like a troll or like any like just a random
I have.
dude like
It's always
yeah,
new
I was
guys.
gonna say you probably have run into a few.
I
Or,
honestly feel like people are like, why is it always you and why does this happen to you? And I'm like, I feel like in a past life I pissed somebody off, and then they were like, for the rest of his life he's gonna have drama every 4 to 5 days. Something bad's gonna happen to this guy.
Yeah,
there is something. So I think you said that usually conventions are pretty okay, but I can think of a bunch that were worse than this. So I did notice it to be better somehow. I don't know how, even though it's like 70,000 people there. The probability
it's that like Gen Con high,
Yeah, because you're not going to get like complete zero of that. There's always going to be an asshole in the crowd, one way or the other. But
every show, man. Every show.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into it with the guy in San Diego who kept insisting. Now, there's nothing wrong with my main character being a woman, but he looked at my banner and he said, "Oh, is that a woman?" And I said, "No, it's the main character of my series. It's a guy. His name is Rohan Matthews." And he goes, "Oh, it looks like a woman." I'm like, "Why?" And then he goes, "Well, he's wearing pink." And I was like,
"Oh, yeah, that
men
one
can wear pink." I was wearing a pink shirt at the time, so I was like, "Men can wear pink," and he's like, "No, they can't." I was just like, "What the hell?" And then he walked away, and I told his friends, I'm like, teach your friend that color is not gender specific. Like, it's just the weird, like, and those are interactions where I'm just like,
yeah.
Like, I had a guy also at this was years ago at San Diego, but this year San Diego, a guy came by my booth to say AI is going to take over my job, and I should probably go get a degree and study harder and not be an artist because I'm not going to make money pretty soon. And I was just like, what do you do for a living? And he said, I'm retired. I don't have to worry about any of this shit. And then he laughed hysterically at the booth. And I was just like, I don't know where this conversation's going. But then he said, then he was like, you guys are going to be out of a job in 3 years. You should really study harder and stop. And I said, I have 3 degrees, but I'm choosing to do this job. And he's like, well, you didn't choose well. And I was like, I leaned forward finally. I was like, get away from my booth, man.
That's such a weird thing to say to an artist at like a convention that was like started
Spec-
by
Yeah,
appreciation for the arts.
I don't know. There's just people that are just like shit stirrers. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Did you guys, speaking of, like, did Jason or Khurrum, did you either of you notice any AI stuff or whatever? I think Gen Con's policy is like no AI art in the
Yeah,
art show,
so I didn't
or
see anything at Gen Con, but at San Diego there was one artist and they got booted like I don't know if it was during the show or right
I heard
before the
some
show.
conflicting stuff about it. Either they got booted or they left of their own accord because of some other like unrelated reason that they just had to leave early.
It's the here's the thing. I don't like how it's handled. Like I get it if you have like a young artist who's like I'm gonna make some AI art and try to sell it at this convention, and they shouldn't. But you can actually talk to them and say, hey, this is a bad idea, and here's why, and then
Yeah.
say take your stuff down. We can't allow this. But what's happening is other artists are like trouncing them all over the place, and I'm just like, why be that person? Like
Yeah.
teach. They're not going to learn a decent lesson if you make them feel like assholes. They're going to turn into assholes, right? They're just going to be like, well, fuck you. And this person at San Diego, I heard, just did leave on their own accord. But there was a convention here in Chicago last week, and there was another AI artist in the group, I guess. And all over Facebook, people are posting how they were trying to get this guy. I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, but trying to get this individual banned and kicked from the show. And then the show itself said, we don't have any policies against that. Which I get it because it's all too new for them to like really issue something. But the witch hunt around it is super. I don't want to get into an AI conversation. It's just I just don't like the way people are acting about it. It's just handle it better. Like, I've had people stop my booth and ask me if my stuff is AI, but not in a hateful way, but more in a curious way. And I've been like, it's not, and I don't really know how to show you it's not. I get it. It looks like it because of what you've seen online, maybe, but I was like, I spent hours trying these things, man, but I don't really know how to like. I'm not going to spend
Well,
time
it's
making a
like,
how-to video just because you feel
yeah,
like
it's like, what you are you going to carry around all your rough sketches
right.
with you and be like, hey, look,
It's
here's
like if you look
what
at
I
my
did.
portfolio, I've been doing this stuff for many years before this AI stuff became a thing, right?
I haven't gone to. I don't think I would probably get that comparison. But I haven't gone to a convention since AI art really has come into like the public discourse and stuff. That I did used to get a lot of people would look at it. They would look at the work and they would look at it and be like, "Is this digital?"
Right.
It kind of like it was that same kind of tone where it's like, are you cheating?"
Dude,
And
I get people
and
asking me
I'd
if
be
my
like,
stuff
"No,
is
I mean." I would even tell them like it's not, but I don't care if it would be or not. But I was like, no, these are originals. They're
I've
just
had
acrylic and gouache
dude,
and
I've
colored
had people
pencil.
ask me if my stuff is oils and I'm always and this is the thing, right? I'm always just like, "What? That looks like oils to you?" And that's where I
That
figure out
would
like
be
most
that's
people just can't tell,
fascinating.
right?
Yeah,
The people that are asking me if it's AI and it shows like one person maybe every third or fourth show is so rare because my
yeah.
stuff doesn't look like AI if you actually look at AI. But to this individual, maybe it did for some reason, and they ask, and
Well, I
I'm
even
just like,
saw someone. I terminology is also sometimes not used in an accurate way. So
sure,
I've seen
Right.
people call photoshopping something AI. So there was
right,
someone who had made a horse smaller than a something, right? They had it was a clearly photoshopped image, and they're like, oh, that's AI image, and I mean, you
God, I
don't know
have
what
not
they're
heard that.
referring to. Yeah, I
these
heard
are the
like they were
same.
basically, yeah, it's just terminology issues. Like their vocabulary is getting
Right.
confused
Yeah.
by some people.
I mean, it's also like the same people that are mad about like photo bashing, the same people that are mad about Photoshop when it first came out, photography, all these things,
Yeah.
and it's just like, just relax for a second, man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
the whole running, yeah, I don't like the whole doxing people and harassing them and them getting threats to their lives. That kind of stuff
Right.
is not called for. Is I think
Yeah.
what
That's
Alan
basically what I'm trying to say. It's like just there's ways to handle it. Is all I'm saying. So yeah, either way, Gen Con, I didn't see any AI art. And
That's
it's
cool.
probably one of
Yeah.
the few times I've not had somebody ask me about my work that way. And
Yeah,
I get questions like, "How do I make
also-
it?" And it's always like, I'm like,
Yeah.
It's all free stuff. Minus Photoshop, the rest of the softwares. Like I use Alchemy, which is now Webchemy, which anyone who's taken Scott's class has seen it.
Is it
Yeah, Alchemy apparently got
Webkemi
bought out by
now?
a company called Webchemy. So I use that a lot for shape studies, and then I
Weird.
use Procreate when I'm traveling, and I use Photoshop. My wheelhouse is Photoshop. I would like to get better at Affinity Photo so I can dump Adobe, but Adobe just has that market cornered for some specific stuff I like to do, like layer adjustments.
Mhm.
If I figure out how to do it in
You've
Affinity,
voiced.
maybe.
I was gonna say you've voiced something similar to that, Khurrum, right? Because you said like excuse me, the non Photoshop alternatives don't really have like the gradient tools don't work the same way as you're accustomed to in Photoshop.
Somewhat. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's maybe a habit thing. There's so much muscle memory for me to make the shapes in this
Yeah.
Yep.
lasso tool, throwing the gradients on there, and you're kind of done. So I'm sure I can learn it, but Photoshop
Muddle
just
your way into
feels.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Photoshop is just I just know what to do. I jump in, I do it, and I don't have to think because I've done it so much. That's
And
the
there's
main thing
people are
that's keeping me.
leaving that too now, right? They're like, "Oh, Adobe announced they have AI stuff in there, so I'm leaving it." I'm like, "All right, good luck learning a whole new piece of software. Don't use the AI
Which
part of it."
if you want to, yeah. I mean, if you want to, that's cool. I
That's fine
just
with me.
don't
They
have the
may, they
time.
don't Adobe don't care,
No.
But also like dude, if like Procreate, the one thing I wish Procreate had was a decent lasso tool. It has something that's
Yeah.
close, but it's not.
It's I don't. It's not
Yeah,
close.
exactly. It's not exactly what you want
I've
it to
used it.
be.
It's not close.
It's like, I screwed this thing up. I do like how you can draw the shape and then
Yeah.
come back later and draw over it again, and it like holds the ant trail or whatever you call it.
Mhm.
I don't know.
So yeah, Adobe has some version of that in their in
And
some new
it's in their
version where
beta.
beta the new
It's
gradient
not
tool.
a public release. Well, it's let me back that up. It is a public release. It's not their
It's not part of their official software.
well, no, it's yeah, I'm trying to remember like what the terminology is for that. It's not their main it's not part of their main release. You have to go and select the beta option for it
Right.
and download that beta specific one, and that beta one has like it has other like crazy new things that they're experimenting with that well, but the main one is like the AI thing that's within it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um
Though Scott Fisher mentioned that there is some software on the iPad which has a gradient tool that is very similar to Photoshop, and I can't remember what the
Oh,
name of that software is.
was that Art Studio Pro or
I think
Maybe.
it's whatever he's been drawing in when he travels.
Yeah, so he said that he was very happy that it works the same way as Photoshop.
Does
So I
it?
might
Oh,
try
I'll have to
that.
ask. I'll have to
there,
ask him.
there's a lot of programs on the iPad besides
Because I
Procreate.
have
There's
Affinity
Infinite
Photo. I pay for
Painter,
that.
Affinity.
Yeah.
I mean, mine works on iPad and my PC and my Mac if I own one because I
Yeah.
paid for
Yeah.
the whole thing. It's just
Going back to Gen Con, I wanted to ask both of you, what so actually Jason, we'll start with you. So like this was your first convention, like what product were you thinking of, like what product did you end up bringing? And then what did you find sold well? What didn't really sell well for you? What like if you're doing it again, what are you planning to like either shore up or tone down?
Yeah, I brought prints, playmats, and metal prints.
Okay.
Um, the prints sold the most. The metals definitely sold the least. The
Is it just because
playmats.
it's for the metal prints? Is it because they're just a high ticket item, or like what? Why do you think they didn't sell compared to like prints?
Maybe a little bit of that, and something that Karim mentioned earlier is that like I had my medals up on the wall behind me, and a lot of people were just like looking at the table, not up.
Mm.
So maybe they missed it. I don't know.
And
I
then
brought a
you.
lot of. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna say you also brought the play mats you mentioned.
Yeah, and at first I had those priced a little higher, and then once I lowered the price, that's when they started selling. So
what you have them priced at to start.
50.
Yeah, 50 is new territory for that item. I think a lot of artists have been coming in and pricing their playmats at 50, but the rest, the bulk of us have it marked at 40.
Yeah,
But I can
that's what I
understand for like a
lowered it to.
magic, yeah. Like I can understand like Khurrum or Ben maybe selling this for 50 because they have specific like magic cards on them, and that's the
Generally, are like, would you say that like those three kind of merchandise things are the things that most people are selling? Like, I feel like
it
playmats get
depends
a
on who you are.
lot of
Like
play.
metals, playmats get a lot of play at these now, and then but I feel like the playmat market I feel like is eventually good. It's slowly getting a little oversaturated.
Yeah.
But I feel like what's happening now, prints are always going to be around, right? Prints are prints. People want
Yeah,
because here's the thing: you can have the
and they're
prints.
dirt cheap to make,
Well,
really.
you can have the prints, the metal, and playmat. Let's just use all three as an example at the same cost, and the customer is going to buy what they want based on what they want to use it for. Like, not everybody wants a playmat because some people come to my booth and say, "I don't play any card games."
Mhm.
Like, why would I want a playmat, right? And then some people don't want metal because they're like, I don't know what to do with this. It's like it's art. You hang it up, and they don't have any art on their walls. Like that tells me. And then some people just want to print because they're used to hanging posters on their wall and stuff, and they're content with a print. So they're gonna if you put them all at say $30, they're just gonna buy whatever it is they want. It's not a
Yeah.
deal, making one item like whatever. So, but the playmat market, I feel like, is getting oversaturated, and I feel like slowly that's been happening with metal now because
Hey, I don't
I
understand the
jumped in
appeal of
on that
playmats
early on.
personally, but
Well, the metal stuff I did early on, now a lot of people are doing metal. So it's like,
yeah, I was gonna
and
say you were like one of the first people I knew that had metal
my work
prints.
just worked on metal, right?
Yeah,
And a lot of artists who asked me about metal, I was always like, you got to print something on metal, see how it looks, see if people like it. It depends on the work, right? And sometimes people might not want that on metal. Fine, but also now it's like so many people are doing metal, and
hmm
I mean, it's not oversaturated yet, but I feel like it's slowly getting there. But it's like
Khurrum,
dice.
did you have a similar merchandise setup in addition to like the miniature 3D prints and stuff, or did you have some additional stuff besides the prints,
I had
playmats?
some additional stuff. So I had artist proofs, painted artist proofs. So
Oh,
I
okay.
had
Oh, yeah, I
original.
remember you experimenting with those.
Yeah.
You
So
had those
I
at the show.
painted about 30. Yeah, I painted about 30 for that show. So I had artist proofs with original paintings behind them. I had small sized medals. I had larger sized medals, and I had prints, playmats, and the statues. Then for the wildlife fund, rainforest fund, I had little tapers which were printed and painted by a friend of mine. So those were
Oh,
just for. They actually became kind of popular in the sense that I was the only taper provider at Gen Con.
yeah, I was
So
gonna say like
people,
something unexpected like that probably
yeah, so
would do
people
well.
really like them. So my friend Amalia Sanchez is like a environmentalist and a bunch of other
Mhm.
stuff. So she painted them, and so it was like a collaboration. So that was also a different item. The smaller metal prints did better for me, as in the things that sold out were the smaller metal prints.
Mhm.
You had like
Then the
five by
larger metal
sevens.
prints,
How big were they?
something like that, 6x4, no, something like that, 5x7, 6x4. It's pretty
I
small.
like me personally, I would probably get something about that size for like a metal
Yeah,
print, I
yeah.
think.
And the price was also kind of like cheaper. I kept it at $30 for one, and if you buy two or more, each became $20. So
That's
they
cheap for
flew
metal.
pretty well. Yeah. Same with the larger metals. When I had priced them fairly high, which was like $100, they were
Mhm.
not moving. But then when I went down to 60 and 50, like two plus for 50, I did get some comments from other artists. They're like, "You're pricing it too low," but that
Yeah,
was the only way they were moving, because it didn't have any art on it that was like popular game art, I
Right,
think.
right.
right.
So I'm like, I'm making a profit. It's selling. The customers like that price, so that's how I ended up moving those. But
Mm.
then the artist prints did well because there were a lot of like that was where the Magic the Gathering people would show up and they would love the pieces. There was one person who came by and he told me that he had something like 900. I can't remember the exact number, like 900 or something in the thousands of painted artist proofs that he has collected. And he gave some other massive number, like, oh, I've got 6,000 just signed artist proofs. So there were people with a ton of money who were
6,000?
collectors. Yeah, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how are
Where do
I
you
hope
even
that's
have that
insured.
stored? Yeah.
yeah,
He's just got a
Um,
magic
and
room.
I
the
know it's
magic
like
of food.
hard to take scope of it during the show because you're like working and stuff. But like when you guys were like, did you guys walk the show much beforehand or after to check out things?
Um, so I went. You can work before 10 a.m. when there's no crowd,
Right.
but there's not much for sale at the time. But I did maybe half an hour before the whole thing shut down. I got someone to sit on my booth, and I just ran and walked around in the crowd just to see what the crowd was like, and it was pretty crazy. It was.
Gotcha.
I
How about you,
I couldn't
Jason?
get more than like 30 feet or so from my booth at times. Like, so I couldn't like really walk around. Even just trying to get to the
Yeah.
bathroom for me.
Right.
This is the one thing I noticed with my booth. I love my booth, but the location made it super difficult to get to any bathroom. which is a problem when you're drinking a lot of water throughout the show.
How about you, Jason? Were you able to steal any time away, or were you kind of stuck?
Yeah, I was just I didn't not that I was stuck, but I just chose to stay by my booth. But I before the show started, before they opened up to the public, I walked around.
Hmm.
That's what I
One
miss
thing,
about this. Like I used to be able to walk around the show before doors open. Vendors like myself would already be in the show because we were allowed in there 2 hours early, and setting up or just hanging around. And I used to be able to like work a deal or something and be like, "Hey, do you want to do an art trade? Can I trade for?" Like I did trade some art for games back in the day, but now it's like nobody is even at their booth because I don't know, they're partying all night or just tired, and you're like,
yeah,
this is your one opportunity to walk and buy stuff. Some vendors are there, but sometimes like you want to like there's a vendor that has like the old school old books, like the $2 books, the $3 books, and you know, short sci-fi adventures. And I wanted to buy a stack, but he was never there on time. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not buying books from you. And there was a guy
Yeah,
that
there were
had
some
like the
artists like rolling in right after like the doors open up to the public.
right. There was a guy that had the video game like shadow boxes. I don't know if
oh,
you saw him. He had this
Yeah.
cool Symphony of the Night one. It was $140. I really wanted to buy it, but he was never there when I walked by. And I was just like, man, I guess I'm saving this money. Because it's like 170 or something on his Etsy store. I'm like, I want to buy it here, take it home with me. He also had a Metal Gear one that I absolutely loved.
oh
Yeah, I
man.
saw that one.
One thing I
Wow.
always, I like, I'm cracked in the head enough that I feel like most like I have no desire of like playmats. I see a playmat, I'm like, I don't care. I don't know what I'm going to do with it at all, right? Um, and the one thing I always wish more artists did, and I don't see a lot of it, is sketchbooks, because that's like my preference for collecting
Right.
art. Is I like to collect sketchbooks or like, a collected thing of art or whatever. Like that's usually my go-to because wall space is limited to some
Right.
extent, and like once I have my favorites up there, I'm not one to like. I have a friend that likes to change out his art and he rotates it around and stuff. I
That's
don't
just
do that.
crazy.
I'm lazy.
Yeah. It's this
Yeah.
stuff's not coming off the wall so I sell this house. Like,
Exactly. But like sketchbooks, books. Oh my god, I've got so many books, and
Yeah.
like I'll easily like, at least to me, books are extremely economically affordable because you get like a
sure.
shit ton of art for like almost the same price as a print ish, or
But I
maybe a
think
little bit
like
more or
depending on
whatever.
the show, like so like I've worked San Diego with Sean Murray, where he's got sketchbooks, right? He's got like 3 sets now, and his sketchbooks will move. But then I think when it comes to like something like Gen Con, his prints move more because people don't really want
Yeah,
books
see,
there.
Wow.
that's always the frustrating because like to me at least, like I want my sketchbooks to move. Like when I did
Yeah.
conventions, like that's the thing I would want. Like I'm like, this is it. This is the thing. Like I know all
So I
this
think you
other
need
stuff's
to
here.
find a way to
Look at
print
these.
them in bulk so you can sell them at a lower cost, right? Like that's the key there, right? You got to be able to print them
Yeah.
at like a lower cost so you could sell them at not too low a cost, but a cost that's like that would make a customer say, "Oh, $25 for a sketchbook
That
or
was the crazy.
40
Well,
bucks for
that's
a
the
print."
crazy thing. Like I was able to do like typically like for the sketchbooks I printed off, like I could keep it around 20 to 25 for something like
Perfect.
that.
I
Which
feel
is
like that's
it's
a good
great.
number for a sketchbook, right? And
Oh
like,
yeah, like I agree. Like I think that's a great number, especially for like a smaller sketchbook or whatever that maybe has like 60-ish pages of art, maybe
I
40
think
to
like
60, something like
if
that.
I drop the cost on my books $10, they would probably move a lot quicker than they are. I move them at the shows, but I'm selling them at 50 because it's an art book with stories in it, right? So it's pretty. It's
Actually,
100 pages, and
yeah. You have an
everyone
art
I
book.
talk,
Yeah.
yeah,
How well does the art book move for you?
depends on the show. At San Diego, I moved 2 boxes, 3 boxes almost, which is roughly
Wow.
35 books, I think. But at
Okay.
Gen Con, I think we moved like a box and a half. But it was like one of those deals where it's like
Oh.
the people buying it at Gen Con were like fans of my stuff, right? They would see it, and then some people were just like, "Oh, there's a book. I'm interested in this," right? So you have to like, it's a very specific individual who's like, "I'm going to read these stories too." Like some people I saw like look through it and they're like, "Oh, it's not an art book, just art. It's art and stories," and they're not interested in the
Like
stories.
reading. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh my god, there's words in here," and they put it down. But then you have the handful of people who love lore and they want to learn more about it. So some people didn't even notice the books. It is unbelievable how many people I'd be like, "That's the first book in the series," and they'd be like, "Oh, I didn't even see this whole side of the table." So because I think they look at so much stuff
You did have a
throughout
big
the.
table.
Well, you have a big table, but like also they like, like people might not notice your stuff because they're looking at so much stuff. I forget what they call that, but there's a moment where it's like everything's just kind of one thing to them.
Yeah.
So you have to actually like lead them to what you have, right?
Yeah.
I have this cool thing, and I also have that cool thing, and then you never
Oh yeah.
say like cost or anything. You just like check it out. Like the
Yeah.
books, I'd be like, if they say demo copy all over them, I'd be like, pick it up, flip through it.
Oh man, yeah. Like when I was doing yeah, that was one of the hardest things to get people to convince. Even if you have like a sign on it that says
Because
pick
their
up it as a
brain,
book.
they've been programmed to think if they pick up a product, which is true in the business marketing world, if they're holding the product, they're 80% of the
You
way into the sale.
yeah.
I
Like
was handing people the stuff. I was just picking it up and handing it to
exactly.
them.
Yeah, I've
So
done that
what
too.
you've
Yeah.
that is the same marketing. I don't want to call it a trick. It is a marketing psychological way of making a sale. It's just like when you walk in a clothing store and they hand you a shirt, right? They're like, "Oh, this might look good on you," and they hand it to you. You actually grab it because you're just like, "Yeah, maybe it will," and then you're considering it. Now, depending on who you are, there's a 50-50 chance that you're gonna buy it. Print wise, we used to always put stories on the back and be like, "There's a story on the back if you're interested in learning more," and they'd be standing there reading it. And now they might like the story and buy the print. I stopped doing the stories because I realized again, people don't want to read. It's very rare. There's a very rare group
Yeah.
of people, and like I'm not saying everyone doesn't want to read because like Margaret Weiss was at Gen Con, and she sold all her books. And Margaret Weiss is, she's an amazing author. So there are people there who do want to read these stories and these lores, but you have to like lead them to them, for lack of a better way of saying it. I wish there was an easier way to just be like, it's a book, it's got art in it, you'll actually
You need
like it.
LeVar. You need like LeVar Burton next to you in
I
your booth.
need Reading Rainbows
Yeah, like
to
just the theme
sponsor
song
me.
playing like nonstop.
That'd be
Take
No,
awesome.
I
a
don't
look.
want that. I don't want to
Been a
hate the
look.
guy. I'm gonna make a note here to contact Reading Rainbow later.
It
Because
could
hey,
work. It's like
you never
it's
know.
Alan's Ancient Ones. He got spaceships and things.
There you go. Take a look. It's in this book.
It
See,
could
we
work.
just wrote the song. We
So,
got this.
are you guys planning to do Gen Con again next year, or like, or at least like try to apply for the art show and stuff?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
I
you
will.
should.
So that was a
Yeah.
big question I had, and I decided on day 4 that yeah, I mean it was worth it. It's a hard show. I think it is, especially if you're driving 9 hours. And in overall as well, it's a difficult show. It's so huge. It's mentally draining. It's pricey. Everything costs money. The trash can costs $40.
Holy
what?
crap,
rent.
man! You paid for a
Sorry,
trash can?
what do you
I
mean?
did.
What?
I
Oh,
did.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. You if you want to rent a trash can for 4 days,
It's
they
just a
charge you
cardboard
$40,
box.
and it's a cardboard box.
Yeah.
It's not even like a fancy
Just bring
trash can.
I just have a stack of jewel bags that I keep under, or whatever, grocery bags that I
Uh,
just keep, and I just fill it throughout the day, and you just leave it on the outside of your booth, and then you pick it up at night.
Yeah. The also, if you're talking about pricing, something that no one gets unless you're some massive vendor like Microsoft, maybe, is if you want a 50 meg up and down internet connection, like a wired cable,
oh, I'm
they
sure
charge
that's.
you $40,000 for 4 days.
Yeah, if you're a big vendor.
$40,000.
Whoa.
If you're in the art show and you just need some decent Wi-Fi, I think it's like $400, like $100 a day or
Something
something.
like that, yeah.
Whoa.
I mean,
Okay.
I got one
make
of these,
sure-
right?
Yeah.
I was
what
gonna
that
say,
sound is.
so do like not doing the not paying the exorbitant Wi-Fi fee. Was it like a Faraday cage inside there then, where it's just like dead
It's not
zones?
that
or-
bad, but it's just when a bunch of people are in there, your service gets wacky, right? There was
I
like
was on
what,
the Gen Con Wi-Fi the whole
75,000
time.
people.
Oh, you were on the Gen Con Wi-Fi the whole time, Jason?
So
Yeah, and I didn't have any problems.
Oh
You
wow.
paid
so
for
that
that?
is not.
No, there was a free
No, so
one.
No, he means like the public
that's
one, I
not.
guess.
Yeah, that was not a public one. That was something that we access. It's something we can't count on every time. So that one was
Oh.
something that just happened to work.
It
So
just
we're like,
happened to be
oh,
open.
oh,
Yeah, there's
you
no
guys
free
got
Wi-Fi. I was
on
gonna
there
say there's no free
accidentally.
Wi-Fi in there, man.
Oh, well, there was
I
one
mean-
called Gen Con with no password, so I
Wow.
connected to it.
Yeah.
They stole all
so
your
that was
information.
something that. Yeah.
Somebody hacked your
So-
account.
Stole somebody's $40,000 internet.
They're sending you a bill right now. They're just
Oh
like
my
getting
goodness.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, my Wi-Fi hockey puck thing stopped working at one point, and then my because just signal
Right.
somehow it stopped working.
Yeah, mine dropped a
couldn't
couple
accept
times.
payments. Yeah,
It
but then
really only
finally-
happens at two shows for me. It's Gen Con and then Dragon Con. Because at Dragon Con, I'm in the banquet hall of the Hyatt, which is technically the basement.
Mhm.
So overall, yeah, it's. I think it was still worth it, even though it was so big and complicated. Complicated because you have all these marshalling yards and loading docks, and you got to get a badge from somewhere. You got to talk to so many. There's so many different steps involved.
But I will say
think
with
it was still-
Gen Con versus some of the shows that do similar things, marshalling yard, loading dock, and all that, Gen Con does handle it. I don't want to say smoother, but a little bit easier than, like, I've done a show in Colorado, for example, where they won't let you step
Wow.
foot on the floor unless one of the union guys shows up with their carts, and then you have to go to the marshalling yard first, then you got to the loading dock, and then the union guy, you have to sit there waiting, and then they show up in their carts, and then you put as much as you can on that cart. They drive you to your booth on the floor, and they drive you back, and you use over and over till you finish. And they don't like carts on the floor, so you can't have any of your hand carts pulling stuff on the floor. But you can drive around in these industrial vehicles. So it's like, what? So
Interesting.
at the end of that show, I ended up just hauling my stuff out and using an elevator I wasn't supposed to, because I was like, fucking done with this show, you know?
Yeah.
They did
Yeah,
not
I
make it
mean,
easy.
it was still like Barbara did a great job. So there were
She does.
lots of things that was working for us. So there were. I mean, it was for that size of a show. It was handled pretty well. There were procedures for everything, but it's a ton of credit goes to Jason for getting this done so well as a first show. Because if
Yeah.
I hadn't done the LuxCons and the Balticons, this would have been too much for me. So
Yeah, that's impressive, man. That this was your first convention and you jumped right into it.
Yeah.
You're like, this show seems decent. I'll
Are,
just do this one.
yeah.
Are either of you doing Dragon Con next week, or like do you have any
Jason
other big
is.
conventions? Oh, Jason! Oh my God! So you're going from Gen Con to Dragon Con?
Well, I had signed up for it, but I got a new job, so.
Oh, you dropped out?
Yeah, I thought I told you that.
I thought you said you talked to them and they said, it's not a big deal.
They
I thought you
would-
decided to stay.
No, so I have a new job that actually just started this week, and so there's some 2 weeks of onboarding. So
Gotcha.
stuff
So
that I can't
did you
miss.
roll to next year then?
No, I thought I just told her I couldn't make it, so I thought there was no rolling over. I thought that's what she said in her email, but I'm
Eh?
just gonna have to eat the loss on the table, unfortunately. But
Oh, no refunds on the table. Dang.
yeah, because it was like
That's rough.
after June something, you can't get any
Right.
refunds.
And I
Well, I
guess you
mean,
couldn't
here's your
like
refund.
sell that table or anything like that, right? It's
I think they move up a wait list, so you can't. It's the art show, right? So you can't just get rid of
Yeah,
oh
it.
I'm pretty sure there was a
oh
wait
gosh,
list.
yeah. So it's like
Yeah,
already like if you're not doing it, someone else is
someone
in
else will get
line to
it.
take
Yeah,
it.
pretty much.
Makes sense.
Oh, well, that sucks. I thought you were gonna.
That sucks, but mazel on the new job.
Yeah, I'm excited for the new job. So
Just good because you were, struggling for a little bit there, and I'm glad you've
yeah,
got work back. So, and maybe next year, Gen Con, we'll go through your booths again. Khurrum, I think, is
yeah,
gonna
definitely want to do it
Khurrum's
again
gonna
next
just get
year.
his notes for
Yeah.
sure.
Jason,
Yeah.
have you entertained the idea of doing a LuxCon?
Things
I
like a LuxCon.
attended the
Oh, you had.
LuxCon last year, but I didn't
Oh,
table at it.
Are you
oh,
tabling this
And
okay.
year?
well, again, like I had purchased it, but I canceled it
Oh, that's
because
right.
of life.
Because of the onboarding and stuff.
So, are you gonna be at the LuxCon at all, or just
No, I
work?
canceled it completely just because
Gotcha.
it would have been such a big cost to drive up there, hotel, food.
I hear
With
you.
Dragon Con, I'm
Oh, yeah.
local, so it wouldn't have been as
Oh
big a
yeah, you're
cost.
local. You're right.
Are you gonna be hanging with Dragon at all, or no?
I could come up Saturday and Sunday, but I don't know
Work.
do they sell day passes? I don't even know.
Honestly, I have no clue because I
Yeah,
usually have to pay for my whole vendor spots.
Yeah.
So.
I haven't thought about it, but I might go up a couple days if I have time.
Actually, let me know. I might have an extra badge for the day. It depends on who's using it.
Mhm.
So
If I ever try and redo, like, try and do conventions again, that Dragon Con's probably one of the ones I would just. I wouldn't. I don't think I'd be doing MegaCon again, to be honest. It's.
you should come do Dragon with us. It'd be fun.
Yeah, Dragon Con I've considered. I've also considered, like Jason, you might know it. It's like close-ish to you, Heroes Con in
Yeah.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yep, I've been to that one before.
Is
Yeah,
that
I
a good
used to go to
show?
that one back when I was doing comics, and I liked it a lot.
Okay.
Really, really like it's a very, very good con. Like it's not too huge.
But is it
It's like
comic book specific? Because like C2E2, for example, I
uh
do decent at, but I feel like it's
I
because it's a comic show.
I would say it's primarily comic books. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it might have changed since then, but
It's shifted. I From what I understand, it's shifted over the years, and I know like when I've been in the past, it's not always been primarily comic books. That is the primary driver of it,
Right, of
but it's
course.
also like it's like 90% artist alley. Like there's very, very small like amount of like comic book vendors, or like like when you go to like any other convention, there's like the
Right.
vendors that are just selling tchotchkes and stuff. That's like 5 to
Tchotchkes.
10% of the show. The rest of the show is like nothing but like artists.
That's cool.
I either like as vendors or like doing their artist alley thing kind of
That's what
deal.
I like about like shows like the LuxCon, right? There's no uh um what am I trying to say? Like there's no guys randomly selling squishmallows.
You're not going to find a cheap samurai sword at a LuxCon.
Yeah, there's no like weapons vendor either. Those guys get on my nerves. I get it. You got to make a business and sell a product, but it's like
Yeah.
I wish the show would look at it and say we've already got. So I feel like Dragon Con's starting to do that a little bit, where they're like, we've already got 3 people selling weapons. We don't need 2 more.
We don't need 4 more. So
Right.
yeah, that's
So,
understandable.
which is how you should do it, right? You can be like, we already have this product in 5 different
Yeah.
spots. So, so I was going to ask you, and I guess we can start with you, Jason. We'll start with you, Jason. What would you do? One of my questions: what would you do different next year? Obviously, I wouldn't say the medal didn't sell for you. I just feel like maybe it just has to get more eyes on the prize.
yeah. What I would do differently, I would probably expand probably what I like the prints that I
Definitely.
had
Yep.
available. Like I had a very small selection that I brought with me,
Sure.
and it was definitely a learning experience. What people purchased and what they didn't, based on what like I had my expectations, what I thought was going to sell, and it wasn't. It didn't turn out that way. So
That's okay. I do like the fact that you aimed big, man. You were like,
yeah,
the rest of us were like, dude, just drive the Honda Civic to the show, and you're like, I'm gonna drive this Ferrari, which is fine because you set your expectations high. As long as you understand that it's not what happened to you at that show isn't like it's not a defeat, right? It's a learning experience.
Yeah, like
you'll build from there.
Like some of my favorite pieces, I guess, wouldn't be like what people would want to hang up on their wall because it was like guts spilling out and skulls and stuff like that.
That's the thing is that's what I'm trying. That's what I was trying to tell you at the show. You basically have to just find. You're looking at a couple things. You're looking at someone who likes D&D, who likes fantasy, and it likes the what do they call those guys, necromancers and such, right? Like there's a specific vibe, and I feel like one thing that can help you is just having a couple more D&D pieces, right? Go across the spectrum, like put a rogue in there, put a dwarf in there, put that's what I realized. Who plays halflings all day probably wants a halfling.
The one that I sold the most of was my Aarakocra painting because everyone's like, "Oh, no one has an Aarakocra painting here at Gen Con."
Yeah.
So it was just like,
which is true. I don't think I've ever seen one of those in the show ever. So
the only necromancer painting I sold was to one guy who said, "You choose what I buy," and I was like, "All right, you're taking this." I haven't sold a single one of these.
I mean, that is a bold way of buying. Let me ask you guys another question. Well, I want to ask Khurrum the same question, but I have another question after that. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Jason? Anything else you would do different?
I would probably just like expand what I had and lean into the odd characters that are more probably marketable.
I think you have this because you've got this cool. I just want to say one last thing was I think Jason does have a cool, like he should be easily working on D&D manuals at some point and getting work with them. He does have from day one when I saw your work at Scott's class, I was like, he's got a very unique style. It's just again. You just got to keep doing the shows till people start recognizing you, right?
Yeah.
Khurrum?
Yeah, they should hire you at this point.
Well, thank you.
Damn
it. Get on that, Khurrum. Get him a job.
Tell Hasbro, be like, we got a person. But yeah, Khurrum, what would you do differently?
So a bunch of similar things that Jason said, but also a couple of so like the conversation earlier, it's about getting like the eyes on stuff. So I wanted to make sure that my displays are a little better. So I saw a couple of other artists who have playmat stands, and there were stands that go in front of your table so that there's no wasted space there. There were a bunch of really cool.
How big are the tables off chat? Is it like a standard 6 foot or is it slightly larger?
Dude, Gen Con's tables are like thin. They're like so you could barely put a playmat. So what I used to have to do is put a playmat hanging over, or I should have told you this trick was I put foam core under it so it sticks out straight. The problem with the foam core is you always get people come up and like try to rest on your table. And then they right? So what I started so the other thing I started doing, which I told you guys in the group, was I would just move Gen Con's table out of the way and bring my own table to the show. And if you cover it up and you back it up so it's lined up with everybody else, they don't care. Like they're not going to fault you for it as long as you're not. The main goal is you don't encroach space to your sides and you don't encroach any space into the aisle. When I was in the art show, I did that. After the first year, I did it every year. The first year, I did the foam core idea, and one guy leaned a little too hard, and after that, I was like, never again. I thought he was going to face plant into the table. I was like, why are you leaning so hard into the table? And he learned, and I learned. So, the one tip I'll give you guys with the metal is you have to either put it on a stand and angle it, because the lights from above will hit that metal. If you're going to put it on the wall behind you, you need to, like my metal, if you look at it, it's sticking about that much off the wall because I have a frame behind it. If you put the flat 11 by 17s on the wall, you need to put something behind it because just coming off that wall causes the light to hit it. It's stupid. Yeah. You think this would have the same result as that. It's just so weird. I don't know shit about physics, so.
I did have a bunch of lights. So I had a lot of lights actually because of the metals. So I think that also caught a lot of people's eye as they were walking. they would think that it's like holograms, or they would think that it was some sort of an LCD screen, and then they would walk by and they would buy it, or they would be, so that was definitely lighting was very important for
Lighting
my
is
booth.
important. Yep.
Yeah, so a bunch of those display things I think I would improve, but also a lot more products at different price points. So I wanted to have something that was something for everyone. If someone wants to spend $5 to $10, I want to have like those enamel pins or whatever available for them. Even some more originals maybe, because those were selling as well. So it's just, I think, having sketchbooks, having a bunch of different types of projects that I have a year to plan for it and work on it. I think that would help quite a lot for next time. Oh, also, those 3D printed stuff, I think if I could maybe mass produce them in some sort of like make a mold and make a bunch of them, have a nice little box or whatever.
I still got my.
It can be done. It's.
This is the dagger Khurrum gave me.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty cool, man.
It's from a Magic. It's one of my first. I know I can improve some of the finish on that, but that was the first dagger from my Magic the Gathering.
Wait, this is your first print?
Pretty much, yeah.
I feel really bad because at one point Ben told me at the show, you're like, I wish I had this at the
booth.
And I'm over at my booth like twirling it around like an asshole.
Allen, is that metal or is it resin?
No, that's how good it looks. It's 3D printed, and then he painted it.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's just
even put a little jewel on it.
Okay, in that case, Khurrum, how much of a pain in the ass is it to chrome something?
Yeah.
Not much. That was spray paint. It was
just spray. Oh, okay.
Dude, this thing is
Did you like the way I've had to usually do it is like you your like high gloss black base coat first, and then you do the chrome on top.
That's a smart idea.
Yeah, because like chrome paint by its nature is not fully opaque.
Right.
It takes on whatever surface is underneath, and if the surface is matte or dull or whatever, it's not as high gloss as you would want it. So if you do want, like, say, a chrome ball that's like a Christmas ornament kind of thing where it reflects everything, you have to do like a high gloss black finish underneath, and then coat that with chrome. But then the issue is like afterwards. This is why I was asking if the chroming was a pain in the ass, because at least in my experience, it's a lot of freaking steps, and every single one of them, something could just go wrong. Like, say for instance, in the base coat, if it happens to get like dust or hair or whatever on it, that shows up in the chrome paint really badly too. It'll mess with the finish, which is annoying. But yeah, like even after like chrome is, because of the reflective nature of it, you can't like seal it quite well unless you're like willing to lose some of that reflectivity. So if you want it to be high reflective, there's like a few lacquers finishes that you can use that work well with it, but it's I would say to use them in a very well ventilated area unless you want to go on a trip.
Yeah. That's any spray paint though, man. Even like the Montana Gold.
I mean, I've done a lot of like stupid like spray painting stuff where
dude, I spray painted a whole car once in the garage, like a giant asshole.
The sealer for the chrome paint, like at least the sealer I chose, like it was one of two times where I was breathing and I was like, this feels like it's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
And the only other time it was like that was with the resin from the 3D printer, whereas like I had it like as soon as I got the printer in my studio and like the first time I tried it out, like the very next day the whole place reeked of 3D resin.
Yeah, because you were like, you should put yours in the garage. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like this smells like cancer to me.
Yeah.
You gotta build a box like Khurrum did.
Yeah. I had a bunch of those respirators, the oil the P100s, and I have the really strong fans pulling stuff out. So because it is very dangerous to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the spray paint also, I have the same. I would spray it. There was a cardboard box. I would put the stuff in there. Then I had ventilation, and that would get stuff out. So safety is important.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna put the 3D printer in the studio until Andrew was like, "Yeah, put it in your garage." I'm just like, "Yeah, I probably won't do too much. I think it's about 50 degrees in there in the winter, so it should be all right." So we'll see.
It's I was gonna say if you have a heater for it, but
Yeah, yeah.
we could save all this talk for another show.
Yeah, we could do that in another show. I actually had a question for you,
Yeah.
another Gen Con question, which was, did the mermaid guy stop by your booth?
Okay, you got to get who is the mermaid?
I will
guy?
explain that if these
Okay.
guys say yes or no.
Did
No,
not see a mermaid.
not a mermaid. There's a specific guy. He stops by and he only asks for if you have prints of artwork of a mermaid.
Oh Christ! I
I
would
may
have cleaned
have.
up.
That's all he
I may
asks
have.
for.
So I have 2 mermaid paintings.
I
So there
would
was
Right.
someone who
know.
did show up,
Yeah,
who did buy all my mermaids.
That's
So it
probably
may
the
have
guy.
been
maybe it was him.
okay.
He literally walks around the art show first, and then he buys only mermaid art.
Oh,
And then he goes, I don't know if he ventures into the vendor hall at all, but my first time in the vendor hall, I do have a mermaid in my series, right? And he was just like, he literally walked over and he's like, you got any mermaids? And I'm just like, what the fuck? You know, like the weirdest way to ask them. Yeah. Well, we used to play convention bingo, and one of the things on the bingo card was the mermaid guy. You know, like
Wow.
check him off. You know.
Well, I know what I'm painting before next Gen Con.
It'll move to one guy. You should only make one print. Okay, so let's move. Since we're a little over time, but we're fine. We're gonna do the tail end of the show, which is we always talk about something cool, something new, something you want everyone to learn about or know about. If you have something, who wants to go first? Jason, why don't you go first?
I was gonna say you don't want me to go first.
No,
It's
if you
not
talk
Dave the
about Dave the
Diver,
Diver,
I
I'm
swear
driving
it's
to
not Dave
Florida.
the
I swear to God.
Besides work, the only thing that's really captivated my attention has been Baldur's Gate 3. It's what I've been spending most of my free time.
Is it worth buying?
Yes.
So I'm vibrating between Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. Starfield because I feel like I live in a sci-fi universe that I love sci-fi. I write sci-fi. I paint sci-fi. I feel like Starfield will be my wheelhouse.
I mean, Baldur's Gate it's like playing D&D, and for me, it's
Correct.
like it scratches that itch because we don't play enough D&D.
Getting your friends together playing D&D is harder than playing D&D.
I mean, in Baldur's Gate, you don't need friends because you got the party in the group or in the game.
The main quest for D&D is finding a time to play D&D.
Yeah.
The side quest is actually playing D&D with your friends. You know, like. Well, okay. I kind of want to buy Baldur's Gate, but I've been holding back because of time.
Yeah, it's on my wish list. It's just at the moment it's like too expensive, and I don't have the time. I know how much of a time.
I mean, I bought Sea of Stars. Like, I have time for a JRPG, and I'm just like,
really.
I mean, I had points, and it was like a $30 game, and so I was like, and I won't get it for another week. So I was hoping it would be. I think it comes out right before I leave for Dragon, so I might be able to play a little bit when I chill at the end of the night. But I really enjoyed the demo.
I definitely haven't done anything other than play Baldur's Gate 3 and work.
Okay, well, maybe I'll buy it when it's on sale. I wonder if it's free on Game Pass.
I don't know that.
Xbox Series X.
I just play on my computer.
Oh, I'm sorry, PC Master Race, blah blah blah.
No, if I remember right, there's not a console release yet, but I believe it's like
it's on Steam, I think.
Yeah, no, but they are gonna do a console release. It's just I think in September or maybe a little bit later. It's they just want to make sure they have the port for it right.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea because if you do like a Andromeda or something, you'll be really pissed if it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. And Larian seems to be pretty committed to that. Like they're not rushing anything. Like they didn't rush Baldur's Gate. They kind of took their sweet time with it and stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like sometime this fall they're gonna have a release for that.
Right.
So I would just keep an eye out if you want to do it that way.
Khurrum, did you have anything? I know I dropped it on you at the last minute.
Oh no, that's so. I mean, I always have a bunch of random stuff, I guess. So I've just what I got is just one of those 3D those turntable things that I'm trying to photograph metal prints with because I'm trying to put whatever I didn't sell
Yeah.
on my website, and it's really difficult to photograph metals so that they look
Yes.
good. So I got one of those, but I'm also gonna try to maybe scan something with for 3D scanning.
Oh, I have a
So
question. Have you seen the Kickstarter for what is it called? The Revo Point 2?
no, but I'm
What
suddenly
is the
very
Revo Point
interested.
2?
It's
You don't even know what it is.
It's an affordable 3D scanner. It's like
Oh.
$200 or like $280, something like that. It's like
That's not
crazy
affordable.
cheap.
Here it is. Oh, cool.
Alan, comparatively,
Okay,
it's
hold
affordable.
on. Let me look this thing up now.
I was trying to look it
Revo.
up right now. I was like, what did you call it? The Revo?
Revo Point.
Here, let me post it in the or let me. I think it's. Oh, hold on. I missed it. I missed an O within that. I believe that's how it's pronounced.
I see it. Revo
Yeah.
Point. REVOPOINT Pop 2.
Okay,
Precise
yes.
3D scanner with 0.1 millimeter accuracy.
Wow.
Dang.
Yeah. It yeah, so like their new one that they have on Kickstarter right now is
0.02 millimeter precision.
Huh.
mhm.
What the hell? Why
Wow.
is this just...
Yeah, no, it's one of those things I really wish I had the money
Wait,
for it
these
right now
already...
because I probably would pick that up to be like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's like just 3D scan everything.
Yeah. Pretty
Um,
much. That's. I'm looking at it right now. I was just going to use like my plain old iPhone to try to get that done, but this would be so much more accurate.
what like for the iPhone, which app? Because like I've only used Polycam.
So I haven't actually even started experimenting with it. It was one of those thoughts that I had. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
that's going to be really cool, and I'm going to try.
I do have a friend here who's a photographer. He lives local here. He's going to try to photograph my metal. He's a photographer, so I can send you. Once I see what he's doing, I'll send you tips because in my head I'm the same as you. I'm like, how do you photograph metal? Like, how do you show it to people, right? So they can see the. I think what your idea of
Yeah.
rotating is good because it'll show it like the light refracting off of it.
Yeah. And there's also like a polarizer. I was going to try to use a polarizer. Apparently that gets rid of some reflections or something.
cool.
So I was going to try that. And then also when Scott used to, or maybe still does, those copper paintings, he did some good photographs for those. And I think he would combine a bunch of different reflective light sources and somehow merge them into one image.
yeah,
But
he would
I don't know
just
how he was doing
Photoshop it
it.
together. I
Yeah, he
believe.
does a
And
photo
then-
merge in Photoshop with this stuff for sure.
It's like I think like the way it's not the way he described it, but the way he like showed it on muddy colors and stuff like that. It's basically he's making an HDR image. Like
Yep,
he takes
exactly.
like a lower exposure one, a high exposure one, and then one that's like in the middle.
Photoshop
And
has
merges those three
a
together.
photo merge option. If you go to it, and let's say you take like I don't know 20 shots of your metal, and then go to photo merge and you drop them all in there, and what like Andrew said, you have high exposure, low exposure, and it HDRs them all into one image for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'll try that. Wow.
Yeah, I
That
would
might
try
be
that.
useful, yeah.
It's really they just don't look good in a single
Right.
shot. So
Yeah, you want like different lightings and stuff like that.
yeah. But then I also wanted to another experiment was with the 3D printer. There was some website, I don't know if it's legit art or if it's stolen or what's going on, but there's some website called, I think it's called Displate.
Yeah,
and
so
it
I
has
learned a
some
little bit
great-
about. I learned that they're not
Okay.
using 100% metal on the plate. They're using like a form
It's
of
like
paper.
3D printed maybe?
Yeah, it's like
Oh, paper?
What?
somebody at the Gen Con was telling me some of their process involves layers of printed metallic sheets or something.
So that is something I'm trying to do with my 3D printer, where I took a depth map of something, and then I tried to, like a plain old image, I ran it through one of those depth calculators, and then I made a very thin map, basically. Then I told it to do a depth map, basically, and the thickness would be the grayscale was determining the thickness of something.
Sure.
So I've tried to print that, but half of it printed. It was like a little tiny thin skull that I was trying to print, but it was almost 2D, but with slight bumps and stuff on it. But half of it kind of melted. It didn't stick properly. There was something wrong with the print. I'm gonna try that as well. So something like that would be cool.
Are you a resin 3D printer on your end?
The resin, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I have not.
There was also, so
tried
I'm just jumping around. There's someone who has been 3D scanning their traditional work. So it's through traditional oil paints, which has, bumps and the dried paint and everything. So they've been 3D scanning it, and they've been 3D printing replicas off that. So it's basically like a 3-dimensional replica of an oil paint.
That's
cool.
Neat.
Yeah, so I'm like, I want to try some weird sorts of ideas over the next couple of weeks just to see
You
what
could sell
happens.
that like a modeling thing that you paint yourself.
Telling you,
Yeah.
man, I wish I had the money for the Rebel Point, because that would be something I would get. And
Yeah.
Going back to 3D scanning apps on your phone or whatever. Like I found a Polycam, which I'm trying to look around for some other ones, but when I found that one, like one of the first things I did was like try to scan my entire studio.
Mhm.
Like I just walked around. Yeah, I just walked around the studio space. I was like just holding my phone around, like, okay, and just lidaring everything here and
How did that
collecting all
work
that
out?
info.
There's some. I'll look
It
them up.
works. It was like this. Like it was good from like afar, but
Sure.
it's like, you couldn't get under certain spaces and everything, whatever. If I wanted to do a more thorough thing, I would do like what most studios do, or like what Ron Lemon did when he recreated his studio, is you scan every single fucking thing individually, and then you manually rebuild it within like Blender or whatever.
That's too much.
Yeah, I know. For me, it was like one evening I was like, yeah, kids asleep. I'm gonna
I got time. I'm gonna do this thing.
Yeah, I want to try out this new thing that I have on my phone.
There you
kind
go.
of deal.
Cool.
But yeah. I am still finishing Dave the Diver, Alan, but that's not what I'm going to talk about.
Thank
I'm so looking forward to hearing more about it.
No, I'll speak to like a video game as well. It's one old and then one new. Like I picked up Superliminal on like a sale recently, it's an interesting puzzle game. It's like how best to describe it? It's a puzzle game that plays with perspective. So you know how like we always do, we all do that thing maybe at one point in our life where we see something off in the distance and we try and like crush it with our fingers, or like pretend you're crushing your fingers and pretending you're blotting out. So that is the basic mechanic of Superliminal, where if you see something at a distance and you pick it up, it's instantly that size. Or if you if you bring it forward or whatever, or backwards or whatever, you can, how you interact with it, like how close you interact with it and how far away, is like that changes the size of it in relation to the whole room or the space that it's in and stuff. It has a lot of puzzles like that. It was fine. I liked it until like I'd say like 2/3 of the way through. Then it kind of like started to drag. There was less puzzles to it, but it was a very interesting mechanic. But it was interesting enough that I was like, oh, I really want to. I'm still like having this puzzle itch, so I re-downloaded Portal 1 and 2, and I'm working my way through those right now. Like I just, yeah, I forgot. I like Portal 1 a lot. I forgot that most of what I remember of Portal 1 is really in Portal 2 that I was like, oh, like these are really good puzzles, and they were all pretty much in Portal 2, like the
Oh.
laser redirecting thing, the light bridge, like all
Mhm.
of that. I thought those were in Portal 1 as well. Portal 1 actually has like it only does like two things with the portals really for the most of the game. It's like the portals themselves and then moving an energy ball around. That's kind of like the extent of like what they do with those puzzles. Whereas in Portal 2 they're like, "Oh yeah, let's go off the hinge on this. Let's go crazy."
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's what I've been working through with those.
Mhm.
I
How
haven't
about
been
you,
working
Alan?
on anything specific. I actually grabbed something that Brian Colin gave me, which is I talk about Vasgrim a lot because I worked on this project too. But he made these cool so it's a bit 80s like 90s cyberpunk, right? So he made these
Ooh.
cassette decks. This one says Vasgrim, the Inner Turmoil. But what's cool is it's an actual cassette. It's a cassette. There's an actual cassette, and if you actually have a cassette player, which I fucking don't, but there's music on here that he had made for his series. And then the what do you call this? The billfold or the actual insert has a whole adventure you can play. There it is.
That is
Oh,
fantastic.
wow.
And then it's a one shot essentially. And he's got a couple of these coming out, I think, but he's definitely got two of them. Oh, nuts! Oh, good, I got it. Oh my god, it's just one of those nights. But he's got a couple of these. This thing's obviously spring loaded because he's popping out of my hand. But yeah, I got he's got like different colors and different adventures. I like purple and pink, so I got that one. But yeah, it's got a very old. It's got a '90s vibe to it because it's got the cassette sound too. But it's an actual physical cassette. And if anyone has a cassette deck, let me know because I don't know what the song sounds like at all.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
But I think it's cool. And I actually had a conversation with him earlier about potentially, Vasgrim is built on the Mork Borg system. If you know Mork Borg, it's a rules light playing rules set that you could basically revamp into your game. You don't have to use all their rules. You can change it up however you want. I am working on you guys know Elise Stewart, so I'm working with her potentially to make something. And when I do, I might make it in a Mork Borg rule set potentially. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Brian's got a couple of those coming out, so stand by. Otherwise, the only newest. I got one more thing I was going to show was. This might actually help with the photography stuff. So I've been waiting for this thing to come in, which is the Arsenal. And if you look
What
it
is
up,
it?
it's a device you attach to your camera. I have a mirrorless Canon. You attach this device to the camera. It looks at what you're trying to photograph, and there's another app that runs on your phone. And what it does is it figures out the scene, and you can adjust on the fly how you want that scene to look on your phone. So, for example, if I was shooting a night shot, I can adjust colors, hue, saturations, exposure, everything really quick on my phone. And
Oh
the
wow.
Arsenal will take a bunch of shots of that and make that image using your camera or something similar. If you look up their website, it's a pretty high end. And what's cool is I bought it because I go on this stargazing trip once a year with my friend, and I was hoping to do night shots with it because I struggle with night shots. And this thing has a built-in algorithm that will figure out, hey, he's trying to take a photograph of so this area we go camping, you can see the Milky Way galaxy with your naked eye. So I was like, I was hoping to use this there, but the trip happened last weekend, and this thing came in today. So I didn't even go on the trip because I had no time. But next year, I'll practice taking night shots around here, and I'll share them once I do them. But yeah, this device is like, I want to say it was like $250. I had to wait almost 7 months for this thing to come in.
Wow.
They're on back order. They're super popular. So this is the Arsenal 2. I went with the newest model. So look it up. It's a cool device. I don't know if it does everything they pitch it does. I have 30 days to play with it, so I'm spending some time with that. Maybe at Dragon Con itself. So that's all I got, guys.
So
But otherwise, thanks for being on the show, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was Not stressful.
Was enjoyed
Oh,
chatting with you guys.
Yeah, Jason, where can we find you on the web if we want to look for you?
I am Super J Smith on everything.
Super J Smith.
Do you have a website as well, or is that also Super J Smith?
I don't think the website actually is Super J Smith, but I think
So you lied already.
yeah. No, yeah, my website's Jason E. Smith at .myportfolio.com.
Okay.
There you go.
Khurrum, how about you? Where can we find you?
KhurrumArt.com. So Khurrum, KHURRUM art.com.
Okay.
That has all my links, my shopping stuff, my Instagram, all that stuff should be linked from there.
I'll post all your stuff under the video comments as
Awesome,
well. So
thanks.
Awesome.
Allen, how about you?
AllenPanakal art on all socials except TikTok, as we all know. I'm still fighting
At
that
this
battle.
point.
On TikTok, I am the real AllenPanakal. And if you type in AllenPanakal.com or ancientones.net, it'll point all to the same place, which is my main IP.
Yeah, cool.
That's it.
And you can find me on asidesart.com. Sign up for the newsletter or Patreon at patreon.com/asidesart.
Solid. I don't know who our next guest is. It might be Kirby. I'm trying to see.
I was gonna say there's a few people in the mix.
There's a
isn't there? We
couple
just
people in the
haven't
mix who
locked
want to
down
be on.
dates.
It's just a matter of who's going to be available first for the next.
Yeah.
So
So in this case, it's a random lottery. Who knows who's it going to be next?
whoever gets to me first gets on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Kirby on. I'm trying to get
Try to get the mermaid guy.
God, I don't want that guy on here. He's crazy. He no, trust me, you don't want him on the show. I want to get I will I'm not gonna name drop him. I'll tell you guys after offline. Give me a second here.